Welcome to End of Life University on YouTube. Today, I'm sharing with you a conversation with Gillian Nye from Better Place Forests. We're talking all about the option of purchasing a tree as a memorial tree in one of the forests owned by Better Place Forests. And it's really lovely to learn how you can do a memorial and bury a loved one's ashes near a tree. And you'll hear all about it from Jillian. And I'm all excited about that as a possible option for my own disposition in the future. So take a listen. I think you'll enjoy it. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe using the button down below and subscribe and leave a rating and review wherever you happen to listen to the podcast. You can also go to eoluniversity.com/support and you'll find three different ways you can make a financial contribution that will help keep this show and the podcast on the air. And I appreciate it in advance if you choose to do that. So we'll move on now with my conversation with Gillian Nye. Today, I'm very happy to welcome my guest, Gillian Nye. Gillian has been an integral part of Better Place Forests for over 6 years, serving as the Forest Memorials Manager. In her role, she has been instrumental in shaping and bringing to life the Forest Memorial experience. Gillian has supported hundreds of families, guiding them through meaningful, nature-centered ceremonies that honor their loved ones in a peaceful and lasting way. And you can learn more about Better Place Forests at their website, which is betterplaceforests.com. So, Jillian, welcome and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Karen. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I've been excited to talk to someone and get some updates on Better Place Forest because I first did an interview almost 3 years ago about Better Place. And since that time, I saw Better Place Forests got listed in Lonely Planet's Guide to Death, Grief, and Rebirth, which I thought was a really big honor. And it seems like things have been moving forward. So I thought it's a good time to revisit and talk again about what forest memorials are and what Better Place Forest has to offer. So I'm glad you're here to enlighten us a little bit about that. But maybe you could start by just telling us the story behind Better Place Forest. How did it get started and where are we now?
Sure, yes, thank you. So, for those people who don't know, Better Place Forest is what we call a memorial forest where people choose trees in a protected, established forest to have their loved ones' ashes placed beneath the tree. And the company was really started from a very heart-based mission. Our founder, Sandy Gibson, lost both of his parents at a fairly young age, and he had so many memories of spending time in nature with both of them. They both introduced him to a lot of wonderful nature-based activities, from sports to exploration. And they were both interred in a cemetery, and that area was built up over time. And eventually, as he was visiting in his early 20s, it was a very urban area that he felt wouldn't really wasn't really the right fit for him as a visitor, or the way he wanted to remember his parents. So that really sparked an idea in him, and he came to found our original forest, which I work in. It's in the southern Mendocino coast of California, and we now have grown to have 9 forests throughout the country. So we're serving thousands of people with this really alternative, nature-based offering.
Mm. Oh, I really love the idea. I too, I grew up camping and hiking in forests, and my parents loved forests, and I can see why he would desire that as a place to go to remember his loved ones.
Mhm.
And so that um, that really the idea really appeals to me. And so I know it's a memorial forest, and so it's not a burial ground. It's not a cemetery where people are buried, but it is possible to spread a loved one's ashes there.
Correct. So the model is that people choose what we call a memorial tree. And like I said, that's an established tree. So it's already been growing often for many, many years. We have established forests that were purchased for their high conservation value. So they may have been slated for development in some way or timber harvest, which we see a lot of on the West Coast. So generally, these are gorgeous forests, and they range from 40 acres to over 180 acres, I think, is our largest forest. And people choose a memorial tree that is then theirs. It's registered through the county through a irrevocable license, so they have visiting privileges throughout time, and they can have their loved ones' ashes placed there at their tree, or sometimes people choose it ahead of time for themselves or for their family. And we work with cremation and aquamation at this time.
Mm.
So it's generally those cremated remains that are placed beneath their tree, and we combine the ashes with native soil from the forest to kind of bring in some life to the ashes matter, and that helps them to biodegrade over time. And essentially, those ashes become part of the forest floor themselves. And as we know, the ways that trees work, they take up the nutrients in the forest around them over time, bringing that life into the tree. So we meet a lot of people who say, oh, my mom always wanted to be a tree, or I'd like to be a tree. I mean, I think many of us would like to be a tree. And this is kind of a way of doing that, if you will.
And so Better Place is actually helping to preserve and protect forested areas so they won't be developed and those trees won't be cut down.
Absolutely. And we are also partnered with the Arbor Day Foundation. So when people choose a tree in one of our protected memorial forests, we plant trees through the Arbor Day Foundation in their name. So we're also reforesting areas that have been damaged through drought or fire or development in some way. So yes, we have one of our mottos is more trees.
Mm. I really love that idea. And so I was reading online that there well, tell me what they are, little memorial plaques or medallions. Are they placed on the tree itself or where are they placed?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we use the term memorial markers, and they're essentially you may be familiar with the USGS style bronze plaque that you may find in the mountains as a waypoint marker. And we use those and have them custom engraved for people. So you can choose your inscription on your marker. And they're mounted on a 2 foot long stainless steel post that's driven into the ground beneath the tree, about 2 feet out, so it doesn't harm that immediate root system. So the plaque looks like it's sitting on the earth, but it's actually anchored into the ground.
Hmm.
And the idea was that they would be meaningful, but also discreet, because we really love the forests to be in their natural state. It's so peaceful, as you and all of your listeners know, I'm sure, to walk through a beautiful established forest. And we didn't want there to be things that would be too distracting along the way. So it's a really nice balance between a way to honor your person and also have it be blending into the forest.
So it sounds like a tree could be purchased in memory of one person, one loved one, but you could also purchase it as say, a family memorial for the future for families' remains to be placed there.
Yes, so it's a real opportunity to be a living legacy, is kind of the way I like to think about it. You can choose to have as many sets of ashes placed beneath your tree as you'd like over time. There are a few stipulations that we have worked out around the volume of ash over the course of 1 year or 2 years, but it's not prohibitive at all. So oftentimes people will place 2 to 3 people's remains at one time, or they'll just place their one person's, but have it understood that they could purchase to pay for more. Or I'm sorry, let me start that over. Uh, Oftentimes people will choose their tree for one person, but then they'll add on the option to place more sets of ashes over time.
Hmm. That makes some sense to me. Well, I could imagine some of us are planners, so we like to plan ahead and might plan for ourselves. Oh, I would love that. But then there are also people with ashes at home that are sitting in urns that they've never figured out what to do with. And I could see how you might decide, oh, wait, this could be my burial spot, but I could also put the ashes there of my loved ones that I've been trying to figure out what to do with all this time.
Exactly. Yeah, we know that when people die, there's a lot of logistics and emotion that is up for everybody that loved them. And so not everybody makes those big decisions right away. So there's always the option to place somebody's ashes that you've been kind of holding on to for a while. I meet a lot of people in this work because they had somebody close to them pass away and there weren't arrangements in place. So oftentimes those people will be making arrangements for their person who recently died and then also thinking about themselves so that that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that really makes sense. And so if I were interested in purchasing a tree, walk me through the steps of how would I go about that and how would you help me find the right tree?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really fun part of this experience, and it's very different each time. So, people have essentially three different options. We have through our website, you can actually go on and look at trees in all of our forests on your own. And if you're very independent and you'd like to just go for it, you can just choose a tree and purchase it and go through all the paperwork through our website. If you'd like a little guidance, we have a wonderful team who can do an online forest tour. So that's a virtual tour that walks you through our forest and they can help you choose trees. Our in forest team has identified quite a few favorites, and we keep that rotating. And we're in touch with our account executives so that they can know what's kind of a highlight of the forest throughout the seasons. So we have a great team that can walk you through that online, or you're welcome to come to the forest. So we host in-forest visits where you can walk through with one of our guides and choose a tree in person, which, I work in a forest, so that's kind of my favorite part is to experience the forest with people, help them make a decision that feels right for them. And we have an in-forest vehicle that people can get a ride around in as needed.
So has your team already chosen certain trees that can be selected from, like not every tree, but certain trees that are available?
Well, each forest has been walked through with an arborist and an inventory team. So the trees have been selected for this process or for this project, and they're all numbered with an what we call an arbor tag number, and that tag ties back to our database. So it's all in our system with a GPS coordinate and all of the details of the tree. And then seasonally, the folks who work in the forest will, recognize or notice a tree that they say like, oh, this tree's been available for quite a while and nobody's chosen it. And for us, we have beautiful rhododendrons and ferns in our forest, and I'll think like, I'm surprised that nobody's picked this tree. It's standing on the corner here and it gets great afternoon sun. And I'll make sure that our virtual tour team knows about it as kind of like a highlight of the week kind of tree.
Hmm.
So we try to keep it fresh so that it's a very interactive experience between the online option and what's happening in the forest. And we're all pretty connected. It's a very small company. So when people are choosing online, it's easy for the person they're working with to reach out to the forest team and say, oh, I just wanted to make sure, is this tree vehicle accessible because my person's sister has a bad knee or something, so we're able to help and be real present with the experience.
So even though people can purchase the tree online by viewing it, and you have great photos I noticed online and
Yes.
videos of each of the forests that are so beautiful. Like it just makes me want to go visit each one of them and walk through them because they're so beautiful. So someone could purchase it online, but do most people come to the forest then for the actual memorial when the ashes are placed around the tree?
Yes, so we definitely encourage that, although we also offer the option to have somebody's ashes sent, and we would take care of it in honor of them. But many times people will visit for what we call the Forest Memorial Visit, and those are just a really beautiful experience for people to come and participate in the combination of ashes and soil. We have a beautiful memorial table in each of our forests where we begin each memorial experience. Then we'll all make our way out to the tree together. And that's where it's quite personalized. So each planner has the opportunity to choose readings or music and anything that they think would be the fitting tribute to their person. And we do that at the tree. And then the guests are welcome to participate in actually placing the ashes and soil mixture beneath the tree. We'll sprinkle wildflower seeds around and people can water those in. And then there's room for remembrances and the things that people might want to do to honor their person. I think that the most special part of it all is that we're in this beautiful forest. So it sounds like you're a real nature lover, and you can imagine like the way that the wind plays through the trees and the way that the sun's coming down or a bird might cry, and all of those things really make it very special and meaningful. Um, they tend to bring a lot of life to a sad situation or a intimate emotional situation.
And so in your work as a forest memorial manager, you help people plan the memorial services that they will have in the forest.
I do. So I have my roles kind of twofold. So I work directly with families in our Point Arena forest when they're ready to bring their loved ones' ashes to the forest. And that is the planning piece. So I help with all of the legal paperwork and the planning of, who wants to say what when and how they'd like to have it facilitated. And I also oversee and kind of lead our memorial team. So throughout our forests, we're doing this forest memorial planning. And I have the wonderful opportunity to work with all of our teams across the country to make this special.
Mm. Do you assist with things like here's some possible poetry or here's some lovely music? I mean, and help families create a memorial that if they're struggling a little bit to come up with ideas.
We do. So we offer quite a beautiful set of planning materials. We have an outline that shows what we offer as kind of our general practice. People can customize that. They can change it completely or bring their own officiant, but we offer a beautiful kind of gratitude and nature-based ceremony. So our team is well versed in facilitating that. And we have a beautiful collection of readings that we share out with each planner, and they're welcome to choose from that or something else meaningful in their life. But we've found so many beautiful pieces of poetry and writings over the years that it's really fun to share those with people and say, this is what we found. As you may know, when people die, it's sometimes our brains aren't working properly, and it can be really hard to think about what you might want, what would honor your person. So we really have built out a pretty comprehensive planning kit, and we're there to support each planner very intimately so that they don't feel alone or that they can't do this, that it's too hard. A lot of my work actually is calling people and making sure they got my email and checking in with them to see how the details are coming, because it's a lot, especially when you're actively grieving.
Yes, and yes, for sure. I was thinking back, oh gosh, when my parents died, each of them, like how wonderful it might have been to have an option like this. But then I realized even though they're buried somewhere in a cemetery, it's still possible to have a memorial tree with their names on it. You don't have to bring the ashes to that location.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. Yeah, we that would be welcome. And I actually had somebody ask about that recently, because they're going to have their ashes placed beneath their tree, and they want to have a memorial marker to honor their parents who, just as you say, are already somewhere else, but they want to kind of bring their energy to the forest.
And then is it a place that families return over time, like on special anniversaries or holidays to visit their tree and rememorialize the site?
Yes, so that's one of the things that I love so much about this work is that people keep coming back to the forest. And so they have, and we really encourage creating a relationship with the forest and the area. Each forest is in a beautiful area of the country, so it can be fun to make a little overnight or a weekend trip of it and come and visit your tree and then do some local sightseeing or camping or whatever. And we invite people to come back. We are currently by appointment, so people just make an appointment. They let us know they'd like to come. If they come often, they often know where their tree is. And we have quite a few folks who just kind of like wave hello on their way in and use the restroom and pick up a snack maybe and then go out to their tree. But we're also always available to help people get to their tree or remind them. We use a walkie-talkie system in all of our forests, so we can send folks out with a walkie-talkie and they can call back if they think they're a little lost or they need assistance or they're ready for a buggy ride back. We've really thought that part through. And it is just so special to see people transform over the years, coming to the forest, maybe for the first time to choose a tree, and then coming for the memorial, and then coming back over and over again with new family, friends to picnic and enjoy the forest. We just had a woman bring her baby to the forest, and she was pregnant at her dad's memorial, and she
Mm.
brought her baby to the forest for the first time outside of her body, and that was really sweet
Oh,
to
oh,
see.
that's beautiful. That's so lovely. That was one of my questions was how do would I find my tree again? And I
Mhm.
guess I could imagine getting lost, but it sounds like you're very familiar with where the trees are located and can help people get back to that spot.
Yes, and everything's really well mapped out. So I mentioned the arbor tag number and the GPS coordinates. So um and our we always have the option to help people get where they're going.
Yeah, that's so nice. Well, I right now am living somewhat near to Lake Arrowhead, so I know that there's a forest here. I guess it's not quite open yet. It's being established from what I read online.
So yeah, our Lake Arrowhead Forest is open and operating, but it's by appointment only. There we're working with the San Bernardino County with our permitting. So people are actively visiting, and we could definitely set you up with a visit if you'd like to go over to see how things are going. It's a beautiful forest. And we have I think I already talked about all of our forests though. Did I or not?
No, I
Okay.
didn't. No, I did, haven't heard about all of them, so I'd love
Oh,
to.
great. Yeah, so there's four forests altogether in California. There's the one that I work in, which was our first forest, our founding forest. And this forest here in southern Mendocino County opened in 2016. And then we have a forest in the Santa Cruz Mountains, our Lake Arrowhead forest, which is close to you. It's in the Lake Arrowhead area. And then we have one right outside of Yosemite, up
Mm.
in the northeastern area. We have a forest in Flagstaff, Arizona, and then Rock River, Illinois, and up to St. Croix Valley, Minnesota. And then on the East Coast, we have a forest in Litchfield Hills, Connecticut, and the Berkshires, Massachusetts.
Mm. Oh,
We're kind
interesting.
of spread out across the
Yeah,
country.
spread out. Do you have people coming from different states who want to take advantage of the forests?
We do, absolutely. In fact, we have people coming from all over the world to some of our forests. We recently hosted a family who the majority of them live in Germany, but they had strong memories of camping along the Mendocino coast. And when their brother died, they thought that he might like a tree here. So people will go, fly or drive to the places that their heart is drawn to. So, and all of our forests are in pretty beautiful, kind of iconic areas. So there's no kind of rhyme or reason to why people will choose a forest. It's definitely very personal.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like it. Um, I'm totally in love with the idea because I mean, as you said, I get it. Some people are forest people, and this would be very appealing to people like me who've always connected with trees and feel a strong relationship there. But there might be people who haven't had that opportunity before, who would end up loving it, who just haven't been able to spend much time in a forest.
Yeah, and that's why it's nice. Like I mentioned, we have our forest vehicle. We know that not everybody is a hiker, but people still want to enjoy nature in their own way. So some of our trees are closer into the welcome area or visitor center, and that can be more comfortable to some, where they just maybe want to be able to pull up and just kind of get to their tree quickly and feel in more proximity to our team. And other folks want the tree that's the furthest out, the farthest off the trail, and they'd like to really take a walk to get there.
So yeah, I was at first I was thinking, is it possible to arrange this shortly after someone dies? But I realize if they have been cremated or alkaline hydrolysis used, you don't have to make a decision rapidly. I mean, you can wait. And I'm curious about that. If people come back to do the memorial much later after the death instead of immediately after.
Yes, it goes always. So sometimes people will really choose to wait. Oftentimes people aren't really feeling ready to let go of their loved one's ashes or ready to have kind of a more final ceremony. And other times they feel very strongly that they'd like to get that done right away. Some people don't want to even have the ashes rest at their home. So we work with everybody from all different spectrums and are happy to help however we can. People can have their loved ones' ashes sent to us, and then they can arrive for the memorial, or they can choose to keep them and wait years.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. It's ultimately very flexible based
Yes.
on the needs
What
of the
I
people.
found above all is that just like everything, death and the ways that we want to honor our people is so personal. And there's no right or wrong. And it's just, we're just here to support, which is in the end, like quite easy, because if you don't have a real agenda or expectation around the outcome of a ceremony or a visit, then we're just there to support when people are in a time of need. So it's a pretty beautiful process.
Mm. It just occurred to me to ask, how do you provide music at the site, being out in the forest?
Well, people can bring music. So oftentimes they'll bring a little Bluetooth speaker or even play it off of their phone. We've had the delight of having quite a bit of live music in many of our forests. So people will bring acoustic instruments, and I've personally gotten to enjoy guitar and flute and violin, recorder, saxophone. We've had quite a few military salutes, so that will often be the playing of taps. Um, it's just incredible to see the ways that people want to honor their person. Um,
Wow.
and it's also I sometimes get carried away in how wonderful and diverse and beautiful all of the experiences that I've had the blessing to witness are. And I think it's also important to remember that not everybody has somebody, and some people are quite simple in the ways that they live their lives, and they really don't want something fancy. They really wanted it to be more simple, and we absolutely honor that. One of the stories that has really reminded me of that over the years is I was working with a gentleman one time for a memorial for his wife, and he had had her ashes for quite a while, and he was very quiet during the whole planning process. And a few times I wondered, how he felt. He wasn't very expressive. He came to the forest just himself, and we placed his wife's ashes. He didn't choose any readings. He didn't want any music. He didn't want a ceremony. And so we just, did it
Mm.
quite simply. And he called me the next day and he said how perfect it was for him, and that his wife wasn't one for much pomp and circumstance, and that the way that we honored her was just perfect for her. And, it still makes me cry because I just realize that everybody is different and there's something for everybody. And I just love to remember that when I think about the ways that people are.
Mm.
People
That's
like
so, yeah, so touching. And it's so nice to think the forest can accommodate anything. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's really beautiful. And just being in the forest alone, just being next to an amazing tree that's been here for decades, um, that alone would be an incredible ceremony, incredibly beautiful just to sit in silence and be
It's
next to the
true.
tree.
It's really, as I think about this too, that I spend a lot of time in nature, but I don't always spend a lot of time in nature with my family and my closest friends all in a group. And so that opportunity that people have to sit on benches or on the ground or stand around their tree and really take the time to honor their person is so precious. And generally, towards the end of the visit, our team will, after everything's kind of settled, will offer everybody some time in private so that they can just be, they can share stories, they can listen to music if they'd like, they can sit in quiet, they can explore. And people tell us that that is just some of their best times because as you say, like just sitting by a big tree or listening to the sound of the birds or hearing the wind through the trees, it's really special. It provides a wonderful backdrop.
Yeah. How large a group have you accommodated at one of the memorials?
Well, we can accommodate in many of our forests quite a large group. I've personally been a part of groups that are about 75 people,
Oh,
but we
wow.
generally see and kind of recommend a smaller, more intimate group. Generally, people will choose to have 10 to 15 people come. There are some considerations around the space around each tree and the room for people to gather. Some of our forests have parking considerations. So it's generally not such a large group, but sometimes people will really want that.
And then the other thing that comes to my mind is, do people bring food? Because I often see food as part of ceremony like this. So
Mhm.
I'm curious, is there a place to eat, to meet and have food together?
Yes, well, it's very park-like. So all of our forests have a couple of picnic tables, so people can picnic at the picnic tables, or sometimes people will have food right at their tree. They'll set out a picnic blanket um, and do something like that, which is very welcome. Pets are also welcome in the forest, I should mention, because pets are such a big part of people's lives. So people can bring their pets on leashes, and they can actually also have their pets' ashes placed beneath their tree. We offer what we call a pet tribute, and people can choose to have that as well.
Hmm. Oh, this is wonderful. You're answering all the questions that went through my head as I've been contemplating this. And I wanted to ask about alternatives because I mean there are a lot of us out here who are really concerned about sustainable disposition after death.
Mhm.
And but not I think not everyone might be able to afford a tree to the purchase of a tree. And are there some other ideas for sustainable burial that that would be less costly?
Sure. Well, even within our tree scope, we have quite a few different price ranges. So in most of our forests, the prices start at about $4,900. And we also acknowledge that that can be a lot for many people. And we're kind of um, beginning to offer what we call a spreading grove, where people can have their loved ones' ashes placed in an open grove kind of space where it's not private to their family, but they're still putting their ashes in a beautiful protected place that they can visit over time.
This price still seems very competitive with what it can cost for a traditional funeral and burial these days.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
Um,
what I've come to notice as well. And so we do want to have things kind of all the way along a price spectrum. Um, it's not for everybody, but for those people who do choose it, I think they feel that it's very valuable to have a beautiful place that they can keep coming back to and kind of create those memories around. Um, so it's really been an honor to be a part of something so special for people.
Yes, yes, it sounds like it. Well, and mentioning that, what about for you? Because it sounds like such a unique job when I think of people who work in this arena, helping people with memorial services and helping people who are experiencing loss and grief. It sounds non-traditional in some ways to be out in a forest with them. But I'm just curious for you. What have you learned about loss and grief through the work you've been doing?
Mhm. Well, that's a big question. I've learned a lot. I think that it's just been full of lessons for me. I came to this work from being a parent of young children and being I was a traditional Western herbalist and owned our local apothecary for many years, and I taught in our schools, and I was kind of from a very what I kind of considered like life centered part of my life. And then transitioning into this end of life piece has been an incredible blessing to me. I've met so many people who are facing their own death with such grace and bravery that that's been quite inspirational. And seeing the ways that people choose to remember and honor their loved ones is kind of a constant reminder to be that person that people will say good things about and have good feelings about when I'm gone. So that's been a great lesson to me. And I've always been drawn to being of service and kind of being a giver. And so having this incredible opportunity to kind of daily help people and be a part of people's journey at such a tender time is just an incredible, special part of my life. And then, of course, it reminds me that we all die, that there's horrible things that happen to wonderful people all the time, and that life is so precious. Uh, we really can't take any of it for granted, and every day is just such a gift. I think that that's kind of the biggest lesson that it's taught me.
Yeah, so true. And for me, growing up in forests, that's one of the places I learned about the cycle of life and death because
Yeah.
you see it in nature all around you every day, which is what makes the forest such a perfect place to be a burial ground, a memorial site.
Yes.
Um, because you're right in the midst of it, you're right in the middle of that cycle and participating in it for the forest as well.
I think so too. And I think that that's one of the things that gives people so much hope is that we're there, we're placing the end of somebody's body beneath their tree, and we're looking around and there's just life and death everywhere. There's branches decomposing and there's new sprouts coming out. There's acorns falling off the trees that are sprouting. I have this quote on my computer, and I don't actually know who it's by, but I love it. And it's death feeds life. It's the end of life that gives life a chance.
Hmm,
And
that's
I just really remember that all the time is that this life is born of death. Um, in a very roundabout way. And I think it's true. We see that in the forest every day. And Better Place Forests is really bringing that to so many people. And in turn, those people are bringing that to us. And we always say, like, thank you for sharing the love that you have with your person with this forest,
mm.
because there's an exchange there and it's quite meaningful.
Yes, yes, that's so beautiful. And just for myself personally, it feels very empowering when I think about doing my own end of life planning and writing down my wishes and to even think now of setting aside the money for a memorial, a
Mhm.
forest memorial burial, and or even purchasing the tree in advance, so that
Yeah.
my family doesn't have to decide if that's the right thing to do or choose it for me. I've already chosen it; it's already there and already waiting, and And that feels empowering to me to know
Yeah.
that something so positive and beautiful can be on the other side of whatever the end of my life turns out to be.
Yeah, I think it brings people a sense of peace to know what their plan will be, and depending on their spiritual beliefs, where their final resting place will be. And one of the things that I love is that you don't have to have ashes placed beneath your tree to come and visit. So we have quite a few people who purchase their tree. They're young and healthy. They just wanted to take care of their end of life arrangements, and they'll come regularly to visit their tree. They come and take a hike. They say hello. and and I think that's very sweet. And then when it does come time, there's this really special honor in honoring somebody's final wishes. When people know, like, this is the tree that mom chose, they're just one step closer to really fulfilling and honoring somebody's wishes. And not only does it make it easier on everybody, it makes it, I think, it makes it meaningful in a different way.
Oh, yes, for sure. Just the beauty of it and having a beautiful place to remember in your mind and to think of that's the place where we honored mom or
Mhm.
grandma or our loved one. I think that's really powerful. Well, mostly I've been asking all of my questions to find out what I wanted to know, but I'm sure there are listeners out there who will have had all of these same questions. And I don't know if there's anything else I didn't think of to ask you about um, that you think people might need to know about a Better Place forests.
Well, one thing that kind of came to mind when you were talking about the idea of it being empowering is that I also think that the act of working with the ashes and placing them with the soil, we also have a beautiful dried flower mixture that people will add in at our memorial table. Some people will choose to carry the vessel with their loved one's ashes to the tree, and then they're physically putting the ashes beneath the tree themselves. And that act of service to their loved one, I think, is really empowering and really helps with saying goodbye in a way, or finalizing something. It's different for everybody, but I see it really having an impact on people to really be able to participate in that way. And I think that in the end of life options, we've maybe traditionally, as a society or a culture, felt that it's a hands off thing for the people whose person has died, for the guests and the memorial, or the planner, for lack of a better term. And what we're trying to do is make it more interactive, make it more personal, and invite people to really participate in the experience and make it their own as well.
Hmm.
At
Yeah.
the same time, protecting beautiful forests and planting trees and encouraging people to spend time in nature together.
Exactly. It's like it's like a multifaceted benefit in so many ways to everyone. Well, are there goals or plans for the future to expand into more forests?
I think that eventually we would like to have more forests. We have the 9 forests right now. We're working on offering the spreading groves option. And I think there'll be some things to come in the near future around some different technology aspects that we want to help people kind of have a maybe more virtual options to join a memorial virtually, or have some kind of online obituary options that people have been really asking for. So there's definitely options for expansion. And we know that this is a beautiful offering that many people would like to have come to a forest near them. So hopefully over the next years, we will expand physically throughout the country a little bit more. We'll see.
Well, oh, that's really wonderful. Well, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm glad that now I happen to live not so far away from from some of your forests, and I will definitely make a visit one way or another to see to see one of the forests just to spend time there.
That would be
So
great.
Thank you so much for sharing so much information with me. And I'm sure there are people out there who, like me, just feel excited at the mention of trees and
Mhm.
and
Yeah, and I encourage those folks out there who do feel interested to just look at the website or give somebody a call. It's really, there's no pressure. We really do love to just share information, and everybody's pretty passionate about our beautiful forests. And so we would love to have people just check it out and see if it's a good fit and how we can support. So you can see our, like you said, Karen, our website is quite beautiful, and if nothing else, it's fun to look at beautiful pictures of trees and read testimonials. There's some beautiful videos on there that families have done and participated in. So I think it can be a nice, inspiring experience.
definitely, definitely. If this sounds appealing at all, just go to the website and start getting familiar with it. And I noticed you have some other resources there for end of life planning as well. And
Yes.
yeah. So the website is betterplaceforests.com. So I encourage people to check that out. And Jillian, I just want to thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. I kind of have goosebumps and I'm excited now about, at the prospect of visiting one of your forests. So
Oh, good. Well, thank you again for having me. I told you before we hopped on that I'd been really enjoying listening to your episodes, and so happy to be a part of that and be a part of your End of Life University community. And I personally hope you'll come visit our Point Arena, California forest so I can give you a tour in person.
that's on my list. So I'm definitely gonna try to make a road trip up there.
Great.
Well, thanks again and take care.
Thank you. You take care too.
I hope you enjoyed learning about Better Place Forests from Gillian Nye as much as I did, and I'm excited about it. And I'm sure there's some other tree lovers out there who are thinking, like me, that they need to get themselves a tree in a forest for the future. So I'll be back next week with another interview for you. And until then, take care. Goodbye.